Hello and welcome to our third video on Christocentric community. We're talking about Colossians 3:15 through 17, how Paul uses these three verses to describe for us and prescribe for us how to live in a community in such a way that it forms us in the image of Jesus and in which we are contributing to the community that itself forms others in the way of Jesus. How to live in community with Jesus, or even how to meet together with Jesus. So we saw that in order to engage community like this, the attitude that we have to approach it with is thankfulness. That word thankfulness is better than gratitude because gratitude describes a static attitude. Thankfulness describes a practice that you choose. I'm choosing to thank God for this community as it is. I'm making that conscious choice. Some days that choice is much easier than others, and some days it's really, really hard. But we're choosing to find the ways the community is gifted to us and be thankful for it. Okay, so we saw the peace of Christ, the word of Christ, and the name of Christ are the three pieces of this puzzle. In the last video, we talked about the peace of Christ arbitrating and ruling in our hearts, to which indeed we are called in one body. That's something I failed to mention last time. We are called to unity. We are called into one body. You were not consulted on that. God didn't ask who you want to be one with. God just told you that you're part of one body. God did it. You were called by a voice much greater than yours to live in unity with the believers around you. Whether or not you agree with them theologically or not, you were called to live in a practiced unity with the saints around you. So now, that being settled, you don't get to walk. Let the peace of Christ arbitrate in your hearts. Rule. Go between the two of you, or the four of you, or the 44 of you, or the 4,400 of you, and let it decide. Let it make the final decision when there's a conflict between brothers and sisters. That was the peace of Christ. Now we're talking about the word of Christ. So here Paul says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. Right? Singing and making melody in your heart with gratitude to God. So, we're talking about the word of Christ, the teachings of Jesus. Let them dwell among you richly. So the first thing we want to understand is that the in here is among. It isn't so much let it dwell inside you, Bob, and you, Judy, and you, Lisa, and you, Tim, and you, Kylie. It's let the word of Christ be in your group, be in your gathering, be in your meeting together. Let the word of Christ dwell among you. Okay? Now the verb is dwell. And that is not make an appearance. That is not equal to show up. It's not that the teachings of Jesus should intermittently pop in to your community. This should be the dominant voice. Christ's voice should be the dominant voice. What Jesus has to say about stuff should really make a lot of appearances in your community. There need to be ways that you intentionally drive the words of Jesus and the teachings of the whole scriptures into the way your community lives. It needs to make appearances at meals. It needs to make appearances before bed. It needs to make appearances when you get up. It needs to make appearances when you get together. There needs to be a lot of text carefully attended to. So it's not dwell in you kinda, dwell in you thinly. It's dwell richly. Okay? The word of Jesus, the teachings of God, need to really, really, really be dense and thick inside your community. You need to be attending to it with good attention, sustained attention, purposeful intention, with the intent to practice. All right? We're not talking about communities where we kind of talk about Jesus and a little bit. We're talking about people who have found a way to be fanatics together about a particular thing. You know people like this. 2 or 3 people share a hobby and they get together, it's all they talk about. Or sports fans about a particular sport or a particular team. All they talk about. The way Jesus talks about the world and God and life has to be making a lot of appearance, a lot of appearance in every gathering that you're in. Okay? It has to be the dominant voice in your community. How will that happen? Well, Paul says, let the word of Christ dwell among you richly, as one person is paid to be a professional student of the Scriptures, and you all sit quietly and stare while he teaches and admonishes you, or she teaches and admonishes you alone? Nope, that's not what it says. Okay, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, as you passively expect someone else to be a student of the Scripture, and then gauge whether or not it was a good gathering on whether or not you learned something new from the book, or were entertained during it. Nope. There's an each other here. I had to explain this to a guy who was part of a spiritual community that I'm part of recently. I said, it's like this, man. You can't just keep showing up and staring at us. You need through the week, you need to be like diving into the text. You need to be drilling down deep. You need to be finding the voice as he speaks to you. And when he speaks to you, not just something cool that you saw that no one else saw because you have these awesome ideas about the Bible and I'm really educated about Jesus. God talks to you when you engage the text. And when the voice and the words on the page meet inside you, hold on to that. Write that down. Think about that. Journal about that. And then bring that to the community and teach it to us, because God didn't only talk to you for you. He talked to you as a part of a body. So bring back, go out and hunt down Jesus and then bring back to the tribe what you found and put it on the table for us. We teach each other. We teach each other. That's how it's richly in your midst. It's kind of in your midst monodirectionally and thinly when one guy talks to everybody every week and everyone sits and listens to this. When we teach each other, it dwells in us richly. Okay? And there's a place for one person to talk a lot. Here I am talking to you. You're not talking to me. There's a place for this. There's also a place for teach and admonish each other. There's another verb here, and it's admonish. People from the West, the western part of the world, are bad at this, man. Admonish means to warn people off their path and onto a different one. Sometimes you gotta get in each other's Kool-Aid. You gotta get in each other's business, and you gotta say, man, the way you're thinking about this, it isn't good. Let me show you how it's not good. Here's something Jesus is saying to me. It might apply to your situation. Or here's something Jesus clearly appears to be saying to you. Why aren't you obeying it? We are lost without each other. I am always able to outsmart me. I desperately need the community to say to me when I'm wandering off course. And to say it to me early. Not be like, oh, well, it'll be fine. He'll figure it out. Say it to me early, because early when I wander off course, I'm only a little off course. But when I get way out here, how am I going to fix that? What damage has been done while you've been carefully not upsetting the community by not saying it? It's just because you're uncomfortable. You don't love me enough to tell me that I'm losing my way. That's not good, and it's not kind, and it's not cool, and it's not generous, and it's not right. It's just cowardice. Got a little hot there. We have to admonish each other more and more as the day approaches, the writer to Hebrews says. Let us consider how to spur one another on to love and good works. Think about each other. Think about what is necessary to poke each other into good paths and admonish each other more and more as we see the day approaching. All right. Teach and admonish, and this is also important. With all wisdom. I've been in gatherings. Everybody brings something to the gathering, and somebody's just talking. They're just blah blah blah. I think blah blah blah. I think blah blah. Well, don't you think I think blah blah blah? It doesn't say teach and admonish each other with tons of words. It says teach and admonish each other with all wisdom. Take this seriously. Seriously consider the other people and where they're at and what's happening inside them and in their lives. And seriously consider the book. Be an honest student of the book. You are literate. You have a book. Mahatma Gandhi said that the Gospels are like dynamite, that it has the power to completely unmake and remake the world if the Christians would just practice the things that Jesus said. Before you practice, you got to know them. And to know them, you need to think carefully about them. You need to think carefully. We have to teach and admonish each other with all wisdom, knowing when to talk and when not to, knowing what to say and what not to, knowing why to say it and why not to. and knowing what the book says, because we're not treating it in an undisciplined and ridiculous way, but we're engaging it as though it might actually have the words of life, as if we might actually believe the things we say about it. Wisdom. All right, so we're letting the word of Christ dwell in us richly as we teach and admonish one another in all wisdom, right? In songs and hymns and spiritual songs. These are three different kinds of music that were popular in the early church. Okay, psalms are psalms from the book of Psalms. Hymns are theological pieces. So Ephesians 4 through 6 is literally a hymn. Philippians 2, 5 through 11 is a hymn that's quoted in the text. It's an early church hymn, where large amounts of really difficult or very important, dense theological topic was given to the church by apostles as hymns, so that people, literate, semi-literate, illiterate people, could learn very important things down in their bones. You have never gotten a proposition stuck in your head. You've never got like, you know, I was really thinking about Voltaire's propositions. No, you didn't. No, you weren't. It didn't get stuck in you. You're not walking around spouting the second law of thermodynamics because it's just stuck in my head, you know? You get songs, you get music stuck in your head, and that's what it's for. Music allows truth to get down inside you deep in the front door and in all the windows of your soul, and then hang there long enough that it affects change. It affects change in mood, affects change in the way you view things, affects change in what you think is true, what you think is real. Which means that the music that you put inside your head is really, really important. And the music you don't put inside your head is really, really important. I'm making this video for a high school course, so I'm going to say this to you as a guy older than you. Okay, I used to teach high school, physically, and I remember a student I had. He was one of my strength students and one of my Bible students, and so I saw him a lot. He was listening to something pretty vile in the weight room. And I was like, man, he was a believer. I'm like, man, that's shaping your soul. He's like, no, it's just the music really gets me pumped, and so I can lift better, I can squat better, I can do this. And I was like, it's building you, it's making you. He's like, I don't even hear the words, man. Next day in Bible class, this kid just sitting there at his desk, like tapping his pencil, and out of his mouth come all of the lyrics of the song. He's not even aware of it. He's thinking about something else, and the words are just pouring out of him. Why? Because it gets in your head. And it doesn't just get in your head, it gets in your heart, it gets in your soul. So I'm not trying to take this opportunity to be like, don't listen to that terrible music. But don't listen to that terrible music. You have a choice. The only choice you really have is what you think about. We know this because of studies done on prisoners of war. Every other choice was taken away from them. But the ones who survived psychologically and didn't break and become Looney Tunes, those folks went someplace in their heads, and many of them relied upon songs that got stuck in their heads to keep them rooted in reality. What we know is that you always can the only choice you ever really have, the choice no one can take from you, that's what I mean. You have lots of choices, but the choice no one can take from you is what you will put your mind on. And the most powerful engine for what you'll put your mind on is song. All right? So let the word of Christ dwell in you richly as you teach and admonish each other in all wisdom, using songs and hymns and spiritual songs as you sing and make melody in your heart to God. All right, peace to you. Grow slow. We'll see you in our last video soon about the name of Christ.